Misconception.
Friday, April 15th, 2016. As I unloaded my belongings from the trunk of my car, my newly wedded wife fanned herself with a giant map we picked up at a nearby gas station. I got lost a few miles over and refused to ask anyone for directions. Our compromise was at least to pick up a map, being the directions on my phone weren't necessarily cutting it. That day was the one we finally decided to move in together, in a brand new house and a fresh new start. I bought the house a few months earlier, but waited until the snow cleared out back at my old apartment to move here. I have never been a fan of the cold ever since I went to college up north. My wife herself never left Florida, so she doesn't even know what it's like to be stuck indoors from a snow blizzard. We decided on the house in the country, away from any big cities or any trouble. It was placed in a giant open field, one that looked as dead as disco. But I like to think of it as an escape from reality. Although, as we drove here, we came upon a dead deer in the road. At first I thought it was an accidental hit by a car. But as we drove by, I saw it was removed of its antlers. I didn't know hunting was allowed in these parts. When the sun started to set that day, I tipped some of the movers for helping us set up inside the new house so carefully. I always heard stories of bad movers breaking your possessions, so I wanted to give them a little gift of my gratitude.
Peter! Come check this out,
my wife called out to me as she slid into the room with fuzzy socks on her feet. Using her socks like skates, she moved around the slippery wooden floor like an ice dancer. And God, she was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Hey, be careful there, Sophie. I don't want you falling over yourself. I laughed at her childish manner as I placed a hand on her shoulder. Only then did I find she twirled right into my arms and grinned widely.
Well, I fell for you. Does that count?
She teased me, staring up with her nose scrunched together in such a cute little way. Before I could respond, she was racing out of the room, and another game of chase was afoot. Sophie! Oh, God damn it. I facepalmed suddenly. I just could never get over her young, lively spirit. It always seemed to brighten my day no matter what. But after a few moments had gone by, I couldn't hear Sophia in the house anymore. Checking the coat hanger and shoe rack, her belongings were still in place from before. I started to search for her. After all, it was a big house and brand new to us. Exploration is always something fun to do. Making my way down the halls, I flipped on and on each light switch as I passed. It was surprisingly dark for so early in the day. Or maybe I just had the wrong time on my watch. Either way, it was really dark, and it only made the house seem much more bigger and more hollow. Piercing loud screams suddenly came out from the basement. Out of all the places, why did it have to be this one? Walking as quietly as I could to the basement door, I was shocked to see it was wide open. But looking down the steps, it was black and dark as the night sky. Tiptoeing down the wooden planks, I held in my breath. Making it down to the bottom, I felt myself begin to sweat as I looked around to find anything to protect myself. All I could find was a ceramic mug on a small wooden table that was currently the hiding spot for big amounts of dust. With a yank of the chain above my head, I tried to turn the lights on. But nothing happened. Hey, Soph? If you're trying to scare me like when we were younger, it's not working, I called out into the distance, as I then heard noises. Curious, I walked towards the sound, holding onto the mug like it would actually help me protect myself. I was not in the mood for a scare right now. Then I found myself stopping in front of the old-fashioned radio. I leaned in closer to hear what exactly was playing, only to be presented with the sound of circus music. But it wasn't the fast, heavy tune most would think it would be. It was much more darker, slower too. I turned the knob on the radio to change the station, but everyone seemed to have the same stupid song. As I was getting up to leave, the radio started to fizz out. It was the song, but being rewinded quickly to then a complete stop. Puzzled, I tapped on the radio twice. Loud screaming, the same as I heard before, shouted out from a small machine. Covering my ears, I groaned as the yells only grew more and more in volume. It was like the sounds of someone being tortured, and then laughter, and then more cries of pain. I slammed my fist into the radio several times, but it just wouldn't stop.
Kill me. Kill me.
I heard the struggles of the person's voice through my hands, which currently covered my ears. They sounded in defeat and pain. I was horrified at what they asked. Backing away from the radio then, I made my way to the basement door, but foolish enough to run with my eyes closed. I knocked over a bookshelf and fell to the ground with a loud thud. Opening my eyes, I heard weeping from my left. What was behind the bookshelf? Ready to face the noise, my eyes quickly glanced over, too afraid not to look. Blood. All I saw was blood as the deformed man reached out for me through its metal cage. The man didn't reach to me with his hand, because he had no hand. Instead, his bloody, stitched up stub pointed in the direction as his tears mixed in with the blood. His face was ghastly, rotting all over his body. I saw small animal heads sewn onto his flesh. Screaming as many curse words as I knew, I got up onto my feet and raced up the stairs, only to then run into my formerly missing wife.
Peter, are you okay? Calm down.
She shouted as she grabbed onto me and told me to control my breathing. I can't calm down. There is a fucking man downstairs that looks like he's been through hell and back, I screamed back at her as I buried my head into her shoulders. Call the police, the ambulance, the fucking FBI if you have to.
Peter, snap out of it. Are you sure you saw what you said you did?
Sophia asked as she let go of me and went into the direction of the basement. Chasing after her, I followed her down the stairs and back to where I saw the caged man.
Now where's this man?
Sophia asked with a bit of sarcasm in her voice, shrugging her shoulders with a fake questioning look. He was right here, you know. I spoke as my breath slowed down. Grabbing her hand, I pulled her into the corner where I found the radio. Maybe then she'll believe me.
This thing? Really? It looks like it hasn't worked in decades.
Sophia said as she blew dust off the top of the radio.
Peter, are you trying to get back at me for grade school?
She then laughed and lightly punched me in the arm. My hair fell over my eyes in shame. I know what I saw. I didn't just make it all up.
Look, if you say you saw a caged man down here, I'll take your word for it. Who knows? We might have just bought ourselves a haunted house.
Sophia chuckled with a fist pump as she exited the basement.
Now let's make some dinner. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse.
Don't lie, you would, I joked back at her, taking one final glimpse back at the radio as I followed her upstairs. Who knows? Maybe I did just imagine all of it. It had been a couple of weeks since the incident, and I was thankful nothing peculiar happened since that night. Staring up at the ceiling fan, I felt myself get more and more dizzy. I had just gotten back from work, and I was trying to think of something to do other than sleep. Stupid insomnia. It always screwed me up. Sophia always tells me to go to sleep earlier so I'm not so tired at work. I know she's right, but I can't help myself. Jumping onto my feet and off of the couch, I head to the kitchen to make myself a snack. And being the very healthy person I am, I grab a bag of potato chips. I am not healthy in the slightest. Opening the bag of chips, I heard footsteps behind me. Maybe it was Sophia, ready to throw my chips out the window and shove a bag of carrots in my hands. That would be annoying, but she is really cute when aggravated, so I wouldn't mind. But this wasn't Sophia. The breathing down my neck told me everything. She's too short to even reach my neck, and knowing that, I stiffened up when I heard a voice.
Please end me.
I quickly turned around only to be disappointed to find nothing was there. But I still heard whispers trailing now to the window. Setting the bag of chips down, I followed the whispers to the window. And then, to no surprise whatsoever, nothing was there. Am I really starting to hear things now? Must be. What would I have said to explain this anyway? But, turning my back to the window, in the reflection of the toaster, on the counter, it showed me an image. It was of me, the window, and a creepy, masked clown staring right back at me through the glass. I didn't move a muscle. I just watched the clown woman place their bloody hand on the glass slowly and tilt their head to the side. If it was one of those neighbors here to welcome us, I have no idea what kind of customs they have around here. I would have turned around again, but right now, I didn't feel much like myself. Just walking off, away from the window. I walked up to the phone and picked it up. Stayed calm and just called the police. Beeping. That's all I heard from the phone. I guess this place didn't set up the phone line yet. What a convenience. Glancing at the window to make sure the clown was still there, I was aggravated to find all was left was a bloody handprint. With that, I slammed the phone down. I will not let anything break my mind. Soph, I think I'm going crazy, I told my wife as I sat down at the table across from her. She looked concerned as she reached for my hands and held them in hers.
No, you're not going crazy. Stop that. You're just stressed because this new scenery, that's all.
She tried comforting me with her words, but I failed to believe her. I know what I see, and that's what's so scary about it. Thank you, hon. I love you so much, I spoke as I leaned in and kissed her softly.
And besides, crazy can be kinda sexy.
She chuckled, getting up and messed up my hair. I laughed, leaning back in my chair. I felt more relieved than I had ever been since moving into this house.
I gotta go to the grocery store today. Want anything?
She asked me as she grabbed the keys off the counter. Can you give me a bag of chips? I replied with a smirk as she stuck out her tongue.
I'm not driving half an hour to ruin your health, Pete.
Using the nickname I hated. Of course, she went there. As we both started to fake argue, past my wife, I could swear I saw a hand waving at me, like it was asking me to follow them. "Sophie, turn around, quick," I whispered quietly. As she turned to look for what I was trying to show her, the hand disappeared with her motion. Then, looking back at me, she rose an eyebrow in confusion. But when she asked me why I told her to turn around, I didn't mention what I saw. I'm just going to ignore it now. It's not there. Stop that. You're not going crazy. How did I end up here? Walking closer to the back wall in the attic, I found my mind start to wander and fade away. I don't even know how long it's been. I just followed the hand once it came back. That's right, the hand came back. And once it did, it would do it over and over and over again. I started to accept it won't go away until I follow it. But now, looking at what it led me to, I'm shocked how this house could have ever been sold to me in the first place. Human appendages, organs, heads, all nailed onto the wall. Dripping down the wall was blood from these human parts. They looked fresh and new, but I didn't see these before. What the hell is happening? Starting to realize what was actually around me, I took a step back. The wooden planks below me creaked, and then cracked underneath me. I fell backwards onto the floor, and looking up, I saw bloody parts starting to shake. The arms and legs kicked around, making the trails of blood grow even more, while the human heads started to laugh, with blood dripping from their mouths. Screaming. That's all I knew what to do at that moment, just sitting on the ground staring up at hell itself. I just couldn't afford to move. Then what? Would I try to bring Sophia here and find nothing left here? No. I won't be fooled 3 times. Alright, who's behind this? Show your fucking self, bitch! I screamed out as the movements of the parts then stopped. All I could hear was footsteps behind me, and looking up to see who was making the noise. Then I saw it behind me. The same clown woman from before had appeared. I still couldn't move. Not now. I was in a state of shock and fear. So all I did was watch. Pulling off her mask for me, I finally got a good look at her face. I would say she was beautiful, but her skin was rotten in some areas, which made me feel queasy in my stomach, even more than I already did before. The woman didn't seem alive. Her eyes were dull and bloodshot, while she didn't look like she was breathing. Her curly hair fell as she stared directly down at me. With a big and bloody-toothed smile, she then whispered to me in a spine-tingling, hoarse voice.
My new freak.
Staring up from my bed, I glanced over at Sophia, sleeping peacefully next to me. No worry, just peace. I didn't have the heart to tell her what happened. I'm not even sure what happened myself. Once I heard that whisper, I completely blacked out. But that clown, I can't get her out of my head. It's like they're haunting me, except they aren't ghosts. Or are they? No, they're not. Just a figment of my imagination. Because none of this is real. Nothing. None at all.
Peter, I can feel your eyes jabbing into the back of my neck. What's wrong?
Sophia asked as she turned around to face me. She placed her hand on my cheek and frowned.
I'm really worried about you. You've been freaking out so much lately.
Don't use that word, freak. That's what the clown called me. I told her, but then burst into laughing. I didn't know. Just saying it out loud only made me feel ridiculous.
The clown? I didn't see any circus in town.
Sophia then laughed along as she then remembered something from the supermarket.
I know how much this place has been bothering you, so while shopping, I asked some people what they knew about this house, and what I learned sort of supports what you've been telling me.
She smiled at me, trying to make it seem like it was a good thing, because more proof to my madness is always a good thing.
These grounds the house was built on, they were...
She said, stopping along in her sentence.
Peter, if I tell you this, will you stop getting so paranoid about all this nonsense?
I only nodded my head in agreement. I just wanted to know exactly what was going on. Sitting up in my bed, I shoved my face into the palms of my hands. I was getting ready to be surprised. In the bad way, of course. She sat up with me and laid her head on my shoulder, obviously trying to comfort me through this time.
Okay, fine. I'll spill. The ground this house was built on, they weren't always so pure. I was told all the way back in 1920, a traveling circus called the Contarini Traveling Circus was massacred on this property. Since it's so far from town, nobody knew it until weeks later, and the killer was never caught.
I jerked my head over to stare at my wife. I didn't believe it. A circus? One with clowns? I asked. She only nodded in response. She then laid back down and told me to go to bed. But knowing this piece of information, I definitely couldn't sleep now. I need to learn more. I couldn't sleep all night, and now as the sun's rays shined through my window, I quickly got up out of bed and went to my laptop. Opening the thing up, I did a search on exactly what Sophia had told me. The Contarini Traveling Circus. It was a circus whose business first started in 1867, but ended in devastation in the summer of 1920 after the small cast of family performers all massacred from an unknown killer. The only thing making this killer stand out from all the rest was one of the victims was brutally tortured and cuffed to a knife-throwing wheel. They were turned into a freak. While researching the topic, I didn't get any clues as to who the killer was. It was all unknown, but I knew who it was. It was that thing! But what is the clown's name? I started growing impatient, but I couldn't just leave this house. Sophia loves it here, while I spent almost all my savings on this house. It's a beautiful house, when it's not being a horror attraction. Checking the clock again, I had to get going to drive to work again. I made my way down the stairs and back to the kitchen to make some coffee, only to then hear the sound of crying children. I plugged my ears with my fingers and started screaming random song lyrics to drown out the sobbing, but it just grew louder as I did. How come Sophia can't hear any of this? Not really being in the mood for this, I took the biggest knife in our kitchen, like I'm leaving it alone so I can be stabbed in my own home. Holding it tightly, I slowly walked over to where I heard the crying. It was outside the house, so maybe some kids just got lost. But I'm not taking any chances. Turning the corner of the shed, I saw two twin boys running away from my direction. They were trying to lead me somewhere, but I know I shouldn't follow. I had this feeling on my gut I should. Standing my ground in each step I took, I played along to their game. Only when they stopped did I realize these weren't normal children. Their arms, they were nowhere in sight. There were normal young boys beside that though, but their bloody stubs brought headaches and memories from when I found that man in the basement. Looking around, I found they led me into the woods behind my house. Hey, you two! Who the hell do you think you are? I asked a bit shaking, pointing the knife at both of them. I would never hurt a child, but for all I knew, these weren't even kids. Please, help our mommy, one of the boys said to me, turning around as the wind brushed back their messy hair out of their face. I was puzzled. That wasn't what I was expecting at all. The other one came up to me and poked me with what was left of their bloody arm, then leaving a bloody print on my shirt. Mister, we promise not to be bad anymore. Just help our mommy, the child moped as bloody tears left their eye sockets in trails of dark crimson, jumping back and away from the kids. I questioned if I was going insane, but these kids weren't trying to hurt me, and I didn't get any sleep last night. I followed them in a small patch in the woods, one that wasn't as peaceful as the rest. All around me were bodies, amputated with certain parts. Some were missing their arms, others their legs, some were gutted in their insides. But leaning against a tree in the center of the bodies was a woman. Or, I think it was. She had no head, just her neck oozing globs of blood every few seconds. Both twins stood next to me. They didn't want me to leave. Mommy lost her head. Please help us. I then stepped backwards, away from the horrible scene, as I tried to make my escape. Who did this to your mommy? I spat out at the kids as I fell over one of the dead bodies behind me. But the body wasn't as dead as I thought. Its wounded arm grabbed my wrist as its rotting, decomposing face leaned closer to mine. It tried to speak to me. Madison Contarini, it shrieked out in moans as I screamed and stabbed her hands so they could let go of me, running as far away from that insanity as I could, listening to the kids calling out for me to come back, but I had gotten my answer. I didn't need to go back. My clothes were now bloodstained after I tripped and fell into the bloody pile. I could only imagine how I looked. A knife in my hand and blood-stained clothes. I'm so glad that the house isn't near town, or I'd be questioned majorly. I slammed the door to the kitchen behind me and heard my wife scream as she walked into the room.
Peter, what the fuck is going on?
She said, baffled and in fear. I completely understood why she would feel this way. It's not what it looks like. Or whatever it was, and I had to fight it off. I tried my best to lie in that situation, but it was no use. I was never a good liar, and Sophie knew it. She tried to accept my lie, though, but stayed as far away from me as possible. I was hiding the knife in my jacket before I even stepped inside the house, so there was less of a reason to fear me. But even I would be scared if someone, bloodstained, walked inside my house.
I'm going out for a while. I need to clear my mind,
Sophia said as she stole the keys from off the counter and bolted out of the door. I watched her leave, feeling stupid yet so comfortable in my own skin. Maybe I wanted her to go, so I could finally search this stupid house. Searching up Madison Contarini, I only found a few old photographs on the internet, but they were definitely her. I was right about before. She was very beautiful without the rotten flesh and bloody teeth. But this was the person that was trying to send me to the madhouse. So I shut my laptop closed and decided to search for anything else that could try to scare me later on. I wanted to be prepared, but then remembered we had an emergency handgun locked away in the living room. I quickly went and tried to open the cabinet. Of course, Sophia would have the key when I needed this gun to protect us. I punched a hole in the glass and groaned as shards of glass broke into my knuckles. The other pieces fell onto the floor, and I held my now wounded hand in my other one. Thankfully, I punched the glass with my non-dominant hand. My good hand grabbed the gun through the now open hole in the glass and held the gun tightly. I felt so much better with having the thing in my possession. I then walked around the halls once more, holding the gun out ready to shoot any second. I never really had any practice with a gun, but anything is fine at this point. Tapping. I heard it coming from the walls. It wasn't the walls though. Walls don't move. It was coming from inside the walls. But it was like the noise was moving. One tap behind me, another one on the other side of the hall. I started to shake, and the gun in my hands did as well. I had enough of this. With the next tap I heard, I shot in the direction of the noise. The bullet went flying into the wall, and then the noise stopped. But the blood now trailing from the bullet hole. Walls didn't bleed. What was underneath it? So, curious to find out what the hell was there, I pulled back the knife and started to cut out the wood to make the hole bigger. Hoping it was an animal, I kept tearing up the wallpaper and wood to try to find something. Anything that could be there. The smell. A foul, disgusting smell came from inside the wall, and I hissed. It was the smell of death itself, and I was not happy to smell that. Reaching my fingers through the wall, I yanked off the old wood plank underneath its wallpaper and ripped open the wall. Moldy, human, flesh, skinned off pieces fell onto the ground right at my feet. They were decomposing, and buried in the skin were tiny white maggots squirming all over. I gagged at the rotten flesh and tried my hardest not to throw up. Looking inside the wall, I found the only thing there. It was like scraps of dead bodies, bloody, unwanted parts. Wanting to leave, I backed up, only to find myself go back and try to tear down the wall all over again. I wasn't even in control in that moment. I just wanted to have the proof. That's all. If Sophie sees this, then she won't think I'm crazy anymore, right? That's gotta be it. After beating up the wall for so long, I sat on the other side of the hallway to stare at the work I did. I felt so alive. Just getting that out of my system was so great. All the planks of wooden were scattered all over the floor, and my hands were sore and bloody. Then I heard a chuckle from at the end of the hallway, and looking up, she of course was there. An apparition of beauty and horror. I looked around for my gun, but I found it in her hand as she examined the object.
Did you really think this little thing could protect you? You can't kill what's already dead.
She hummed as she walked past me and down the hallway. I just stayed against the wall. But then with all the strength I had to jump onto my feet while holding my knife in my hands, I went and stabbed her in the back. The room seemed even more quiet as soon as I did, my fear enveloping me whole inside my mind. Black liquid oozed out of the stab wound while Madison came to a complete stop. I just stood there, holding the knife in her back, not ready to remove it from the woman. But she didn't seem to feel any of it. Her head turned around as the same black liquid exited the corners of her mouth when she grinned. It dropped down her chin and fell onto the floor in little puddles, then pouring on my own gun. She shot me in the shoulder blade. I screamed as I crouched onto the floor, the gun being thrown next to my body. I grabbed the object as fast as I could, but by the time I was ready to shoot the devil, she was gone out of my sight. And I just stared down at the floor with the black liquid in front of me, and back at the wall I sworn I demolished. But the wall was perfectly intact. As I heard the front door open, I was glad Sophia had come home now. I needed her now more than ever. I just felt so lost. I felt like I was losing it. Heading to the door, I saw her just staring at the handle as her hand rested on it.
Peter, do you have anything you'd like to tell me?
She asked me slowly under her breath as the moonlight shined through the windows that dark night. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were glued to the door. I was surprised she was asking me such a thing, because I knew she didn't want me talking about these horror tales anymore. No, I don't. Why do you ask? I said, skeptical, and walked closer to her. I was nervous on what she was trying to refer to.
Peter, are you really fucking with me right now? You haven't been to work in months, and now I hear about murders happening?
She screamed at me, still holding onto the door's handle. Tears started to fall from her eyes as I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away. It was like she didn't want to accept what was really happening.
Peter, they're saying the killings have been happening nearby ever since we moved here. Have you really lost it?
She sobbed. Then, trying to make her way out of the room, I grabbed her by the wrist. I needed to know more. Sophia, it's not me. It's this clown, Madison Contarini, I cried to her, but she shoved my hand away. She started to tell me how all of these excuses weren't going to cut it anymore. But her words went right through me. I know what's happening. She doesn't understand it. She ran away into the living room, and I heard her dial something on her cell phone. 3 buttons, and I no longer felt like I was there anymore. But that was when I heard a scream from where she was, and when I finally went back to see her, I was mortified. My own wife, being constantly stabbed and pinned down onto the couch. She cried for release, yet the scariest thing in all of this was the one stabbing her. Turning my head to the right to stare at the mirror, I saw my wife's bloody reflection, and the one killing her over her weak body. They were angry, blood-soaked all over. Their eyes were so tired and full of rage, I tried to understand who this person was, and to my horror I found it was myself. I was just done with her bullshit. I am not fucking crazy. Why was she doing this to me? She probably was lying about the killings. Hearing her cry underneath me, I looked down to her face. Her stab wounds were small, nothing to kill, but I was still the one to do this to her. Did I really let this house get the best of me?
I'm surprised it took you so long to turn on your beloved wife.
A voice chuckled from the darkness on the other side of the room. Turning my head to the noise, I unpinned my wife off the couch and stood facing the voice. It walked out of the shadows to show its bloody soaked clown outfit. Madison Contarini. What have you done? I screamed at the undead woman as she only clicked her tongue. But thinking more into this, I came to the thought, maybe she wasn't even there. Maybe I really am a killer. No, that's preposterous. I haven't done anything wrong. Dang! I was hit over the head by a mysterious creature next to me with a bat. And as I fell onto the floor, I saw Madison go over to my weakened wife and grin. Sore and numb on the floor, I laid there on the now blood-soaked carpet, just watching everything that was about to happen. My head was stepped on by that freak who hit me. They were mostly normal, except they had a pig's head sewn onto their flesh and the eyes. Eyes were sewn all over their flesh, sticking out in all directions, all bloody and grotesque. I myself felt as if I was about to throw up at the mere sight.
Your wife is beautiful. That is, if you're a fan of the boring and ordinary.
The clown woman spoke as she caressed my wife's face. I tried to struggle underneath the door of the beast, but it was no use. At that moment, I swore I saw arms rip right through the fabric of the couch and grab Sophia, only to hold her down more secure for any amount of torture. First it was the eyes. Always the eyes. Madison pulled out scissors and stabbed each one with them like a toothpick. Then pulling it out, I watched as the eyes snapped out of the socket from the attachment. She turned to me and threw the eyes in my direction.
I've always hated dishwasher blue eyes like these, you know? So many memories.
She mimicked to my horror as I watched the eyes splat on the carpet. I started to cry. This couldn't be how it ends. It's just not possible. The clown woman turned back to Sophia and started to hum along to the tune of the circus music I once heard long ago.
Oh, and Peter, I prefer the name Macabre.
And once Macabre said that to me, everything went black. They now tell me I just imagined everything, just like how Sophia thought. I wish I could tell her I'm sorry, but that's no longer an option. When I woke up from my unconsciousness, the police were already there, and I was put in handcuffs because they found the bloody knife in my hands. They wouldn't even let me say goodbye to my own wife. All I got was a small glimpse of her. She was just laying there on the couch. She had antlers sewn onto her head while she was disemboweled, and her legs were freshly sawed off her body. They were just laying there on the now crimson-stained carpet beneath her. Just thinking of the sight brought tears to my eyes. They tell me I'm the reason to all the killings over the past few months. But it's only June 13th. Not even 2 months since I moved here. Yet, everyone says I lived here months before that. Have I forgotten exactly when I came to this hellhole? Maybe I have. Maybe I really did kill those people. Maybe that's why there were those parts in the attic, and flesh in the walls. But one thing is for certain. Madison, Macabre, was real. That's it. Macabre was using me, taking over me to kill those people. It all makes sense now. That evil, evil little bitch! But when I tell the police it was all her doing, none of them believe me. Why won't they fucking listen to me? That clown, that creator of all these freaks, is going to kill us all. And they don't even care. Leading me out and into one of the police cars, I look up back at the house that triggered everything. And in the window of the attic, I saw her. Madison Contarini. Macabre. She placed a bloody hand on the glass window and tilted her head to the side. Just like when I first saw her, I started to scream at the sight. Why won't they see me? She's right there. I'm not crazy. She's right there. I'm not fucking crazy!